definitely a different general manager in my 21st year. Radically different today in the job than I was when I first started, because the game has changed, it has evolved, and people who weren't open to change and willing to change and understanding that knowledge is good, as simple as that, they died off like the dinosaurs. I think I've been able to survive because we've had success, but I've also, one of the things I'm really proud about is the transformation that the ownership has allowed me to provide in certain new categories. We should be, more than anybody else, using every tool in the toolbox. So that was my argument with the boss back in the day, which is others are using these areas to their benefit, and we currently are closed out, and we shouldn't be closed out on anything. You're the New York Yankees, and you should have everything at your disposal. That's all the boss needed to hear. I've been allowed to hire really high-end quality people in various departments to help guide us and support us, so the Steinbrenners have the best information possible when they have to make a final call on something. And it's worked out so far.
In 2018, the New York Yankees locked up their second straight 90-win season. And after coming within a game of the World Series in 2017, the club has its sights on another fruitful run deep into October. This did not happen by accident. Baseball teams, in the age of information, don't just click by chance. In fact, very little in the game today is left up to chance. So, after winning fewer than 90 games in each of the 4 seasons prior to last, how did they get here? How did they get stronger, faster, younger? And how did they do it without a conventional rebuild?
It used to be you could have an advantage if your manager was smart, if your hitting coach or your pitching coach were experienced and they could pick up little things. But now you have cameras trained on pitchers, trained on hitters. You have heat maps, you have tendencies, you have pitch design, and you have StatCast to study all these things. And with all this information, now you have an opportunity to get a competitive advantage. I think all teams are now involved. It's just a matter of to what extent.
The Yankees are very involved and have built an operation that is looked at as a stealth power within the game. It began in 2005, 2 years after the emergence of Moneyball, something Yankees GM Brian Cashman called a game changer for all sports.
I don't think we knew at the time what level you could take this to. So Mike Fishman was, to me, a transforming personality for this franchise, because he was hired to undertake building a department and educating myself and others.
When I started in 05, I was the first analyst here for the Yankees, and it was really building everything from the ground floor. And fortunately, I've had an opportunity to grow it a lot since then.
You certainly keep track of people's opinions, and the ones that continue to be right, they climb the credibility tree. And Mike Fishman, with the approach that he had with analytics, has continued to be right more than most. And because of that, you know, he's emerged now as an assistant general manager, and very well maybe a general manager sooner than later in the game.
Fishman's influence has spread to other branches of that tree, to domestic amateur scouting, to pro scouting, to player development, all traditional areas of a club, and all have analysts working within. A department that started with 1 analyst in 2005 has grown to well over 20 and keeps expanding.
We've obviously become more understanding of the value of a spin rate. We've understood more about break X and break Z and things like that. And when I first started, I don't know if it existed, or if it did, we sure didn't know about it.
Oppenheimer was promoted to scouting director in 2005. The same year, the Yankees drafted Brett Gardner. Since then, Dellin Betances, David Robertson, and more recently, Jordan Montgomery, Greg Bird, and Aaron Judge were drafted by the club, while international scouting added amateurs Luis Severino, Gary Sanchez, and Miguel Andujar. Over that period, departments have added layers of personnel. Scott Beneke is a name many Yankees fans don't hear often, but the club's analyst for amateur scouting since 2012 has become the bridge man. He's in charge of analytically identifying talent under Oppenheimer.
We have a bunch of internal metrics that we put together that are the best predictors of future performance. We have a pretty good idea of why we want to draft someone, what the plan will be for a player once we draft them, and we put that together and pass it along to player development, and player development will take it from there and execute that plan.
I mean, we try to look at everything from the player's makeup you know, the way they go about their business, their production on the field, the impact on the clubhouse, and then trying to look at all the different ways that you can impact the game. And I think we've gotten a better understanding in the last few years based on some of the things that analytics have been able to point out. And I think the analytics guys have gotten much better based on things that we've been able to point out.
This practice has manifested itself throughout the game. Over the last several years, the Yankees have made an art form of trading non-impact prospects for players that flourish upon arriving in New York. Didi Gregorius and Aaron Hicks have developed into key components of the lineup, while Chad Green is one of the most trusted relievers in Aaron Boone's bullpen. These players represent a new generation of athletes that are seeking out the data themselves.
Didi Gregorius is one example this year. He kind of took some of the information we gave him about kind of how much and where he was swinging and kind of the value and kind of being a little more selective and focusing on his pitches on kind of what his production could be with that.
Most of the scouting reports we got when I was playing were handwritten, that were from advanced scouts in the stands, and you were pretty much relying on one or two sets of eyes and trusting their judgment. Before, it was, you know, basically going on memory, you know, what my memory was. A little bit of video here and there, but you know, it was much, much different, much harder to get that kind of information.
And it's gone past just scouts and analysts collaborating. The Yankees' resources have opened up new avenues to gain a deeper understanding of players. John Kramer was a Yankees minor leaguer, reaching as high as AA. He's now in his third full year leading and developing the team's Department of Performance Science.
So we draft a kid out of high school. We do some assessments on him. We realize that this kid's got all of the mental characteristics are there. His ability to put the bat to the ball is there, but he's missing that explosive component. Well, that's great information for our strength coaches because he's in a little bit of a different stream now as far as his development pathway than the player who, let's say, maybe he's got all the physical attributes, but from a decision-making standpoint, he struggles with something like reaction time or processing information. Well, we can put him on a different pathway to hopefully develop those skills. The Yankees are concerned with looking at each player individually and then giving that player a roadmap that suits his individual qualities as a player and a person.
Kramer called performance science an emerging area in baseball. This could further separate major league front offices in the information war. Or maybe it won't. A lot of this practice is finding out what sticks. And the outside perception is the Yankees are doing this better than most.
To build a baseball ops department that is smart, that is operating well with your coaching staff and with your players, that is getting the right information down to the field, but you have to constantly have an open mind to it. You have to have an organization from the top down that welcomes it, that is constantly pushing it, and is constantly asking the right questions. And the Yankees are doing that. They might not get a lot of credit for it because from the outside it looks like they spend a lot of money, they have stars, yeah, but people in baseball know they also do those little things that make them a championship contender.
I want nothing but open-minded people that are willing to challenge themselves and therefore ourselves into what don't we know and what can we be better at. Not having an arrogance thinking that we've got it all figured out because somebody else, whether it's within our own sport, they might be doing something better than we are. It could be out of our sport, it could be in the NFL, it could be in the NHL, it could be the NBA, it could be in Premier Soccer, it could be in Australian rules football. Whether it's a certain modality that their athletes are being trained with or rehabbed through, we're just open to looking at any options that are available that currently exist that maybe we don't know about or don't know enough about, and researching it and finding if it's something worth adopting here.
August 31st is the final chance for teams to add players that would be eligible for the postseason. Just hours before the deadline, the Yankees added veteran outfielder Andrew McCutchen. He serves as an example of why fans can look past traditional statistics and still see lots of value.
When you're taking a look at a hitter's statistics these days, what are you looking at first?
I'm not going to say.
Do you value batting average?
Not as much as other categories.
As much as you used to?
No. Batting average used to be the highlight of somebody's baseball card, and the higher the batting average, the more value it is. But obviously I think we've all been taught the very simple things now we look at, that you could have a lower batting average but really, really high walk total, and you're not making outs, and you're keeping the line moving, and you're having a positive impact on the offense.
The end game is winning championships, and we know the pieces the Yankees will be going to battle with to get there. A selectively aggressive core of hitters who will do damage when getting their pitch and take their base when they don't. A core of pitchers that excel in the fight against launch angle and the ability to power past opponents. That's the roster that wears the pinstripes. The other roster, the one that has incorporated these values, has become just as vital.
When I first started, it was all about the players on the field. How do we get more of the best players on the field? But there was less of the educational component here about how do we grow our own staffs? How do we grow our player development people, our scouting people, our front office people, and the education that, which also includes massively the analytics side, has allowed that to happen. We have really invested in each individual person to help put them in a position to serve us better. That analytics education and that flow of that information and how it's delivered and how it's packaged, it's something that we rely on heavily, and it's allowed us to turn things around on a much quicker basis than it ever would have happened. And so if we didn't incorporate analytics, I don't think we'd be, the team we're capable of being as we are right now.